Hello, and welcome to SoberCast. We provide AA speaker meetings and workshops in a podcast format. We are an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us be self-supporting by visiting Sobercast.com, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 into the virtual basket. Also, if you're a member of NA or have friends that are, please tell them about our other podcast, NAPOD. NAPOD features NA speakers and workshops in the same format as SoberCast. We upload a new speaker every day, and it's easy to subscribe by searching for NAPOD, N-A-P-O-D, all one word, on any podcast player app, or go to napod.xyz if you'd like to listen online. Hope you enjoy the podcast and have a great day.
Hello, my name's Randy. I'm an alcoholic. Very happy to be here. Very grateful to be here. It's not an original thought, but I've learned that it's an honor and a privilege to be asked to be of service at Alcoholics Anonymous. And a lot of my life in recovery has been learning to do what you people told me to do, which I fought kicking and screaming the whole way. My sobriety date is January 13th, 1989, which means today I'm 13 years and 8 months. And I count months, I count days, I count it all because I couldn't count on it before. It is through the grace of God and the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous that I'm sober. And as I listened to people share earlier, everybody hit me dead on. I mean, everybody got right here. It's the language of the heart, and that's why I come back. That's why I keep coming here. I was talking earlier to someone, and we were talking about longevity in Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you ever go to the big meetings when they do the countdowns, when they start getting past about 5 years, the numbers go way down. And I don't know where those people are, but I know where I am. I'm an alcoholic with a busy mind. I'm a sober alcoholic. But I've come to learn about untreated alcoholism, and that means that you take away the drink, and I still have the same mind. And it's got to be arrested on a daily basis, and that's contingent on my spiritual condition, my relationship with my higher power, who I choose to call God, and how I practice this program that's in this blue book. And at 13 years and 8 months, it's as important to me today as it was back when. And I was also expressing earlier that I want to go to a meeting 7 days a week. And I remember when I was new and I hated meetings and I didn't want to be here, and they said, go until you want to go. And that was kind of confusing, but it confused me enough to make me go. And now I want to be here. I want to be here. I am part of it. I was also expressing that I walked in and you all look familiar, and I don't mean to sound cliche, but I've been to meetings all over the country because I used to travel a lot. And there's a look that we have, and it's a look that says it's okay to talk. It's okay to express yourself. It's okay to let the hearts talk. It's not what happens at work. And as Doug was expressing, I think, being a little bit more careful when he says certain things, or somebody was expressing that earlier. Maybe it was Rick. I was saying, I try to be careful who I share things with. It was Rick. I like to share, and I've learned that if the poison stays inside, I'm toast. That I have got to learn to find a place to process whatever's going on. I thought by 5 years maybe I'd be relaxed. No, maybe 10 years. And there's a priest in Southern California, Monsignor Terry Ritchie. He's probably got 38 years. I've been on a couple of retreats with him. And he says that he thought that God would kind of make him better if he was in recovery, but he said that he found that God wanted him to be a chicken shit, fearful alcoholic with bad hair. So I think I qualified. And the reason was so he could relate, so other chicken shit alcoholics with bad hair could relate to him. So I don't want to insult my manliness, but fear is a big motivator in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm a guy that's been prone to anger for a long time, and I've understood that that's a manifestation of fear. And for a man, it's a lot more appropriate to express being angry than to walk around saying, I'm scared. So, but anyway, I think what I'm afraid of in life is just lack of control, lack of power. That's my dilemma. And my wife and I were talking about that on the phone tonight, and she realized it's a big trigger for her. She's not in recovery, but she hangs around me quite a bit, so she needs to be. But, I listen to you all talk about your experience, strength, and hope, and we all have something to offer. And is it Ken? Dennis, I'm sorry. Yeah, see, my mind's still halfway gone. I was talking to Dennis earlier, and we were just talking about his new journey, and that puts me right back in touch with where I was, and that's the beauty of Alcoholics Anonymous, that wherever I am, whatever I brought through the door, as soon as I start talking to somebody and the hand goes out, everything else just neutralizes, and it's okay. And that's why I keep coming here. That's why I believe that I will always be desperate. When I pray for patience, God does not give me the parking spot right up front. He makes me walk. Because I've got to practice that virtue before I own it. That's the way it works. So at 13 years and 8 months, a lot of the synapses are starting to kick. I'm and fire again. They're coming back to life. I'm starting to get it. And I was really sure I'd be all dialed in and perfect by this time, so it's kind of disconcerting. But but I have also come to understand that if I pray for humility, that I will encounter regular experiences that keep me humble. So watch what you pray for. And I know that that's what I want to pray for, and I'm going to continue to pray for that. So I got sober in Burlingame down in the Bay Area, and it is different moving to a new place. I moved to Folsom in 1995, I guess it was. But I got sober. I tried in 87, and I quit because I was in trouble. And I went to my boss, and my mom was 13 years sober at the time, and she was running cleaning sober houses down in the Bay Area. And I used to do the maintenance on those things. And I was drinking and using and all kinds of crazy things. And then I'd go mow their lawns or whack the weeds and, just laugh at those people. My grandfather died from this disease. My uncle just died on my birthday, my natal birthday, April 30th, 69 years old. He hemorrhaged and his lungs were fried from crack. He was introduced to AA many years ago, and he was dry for a while, and he started drinking again. It has ravaged my family. It's not who it affects; it's who you count who haven't been affected by it, because almost everybody has. But I don't have any misconceptions about whether there's a genetic component. I mean, it doesn't matter. I know for me and my family, it's voodoo. It's just bad stuff. So I didn't want to be like my mother. She told me when she was drunk, she constantly said, "You're going to be just like your Uncle Herb," because I came home on Friday night loaded at 14. By 15, I was full blown. What happened was from the very first time I drank, I got drunk. And my parents were water skiers, and we'd go to lakes, and they'd always have the ice chest, and they'd get ripped, and I'd start, I'd grab the stuff and throw it off into the bushes while they were playing volleyball, and then we'd go and we'd start drinking. But from the very beginning, I got drunk, and I did foolish things. It made me Superman, and I liked that because I was fearful. But by 15, I realized that every time I did it, I got drunk, and in order to go to school that way, it didn't work very well. So I started, the cigarettes with no writing on the sides that you roll yourself, and started doing that. But from 15 to 30, I was under the influence. During that time, I completed my high school. I played football, got kicked off the basketball team for fighting and for not cutting my hair, and for not cutting my hair short enough. And played baseball, and when I wasn't playing baseball, I ran track. I was in drama. I was the vice president, and what I told the stoners, I'll let you smoke dope in the bathroom, and I told the jocks, what they wanted to hear, and it just was whatever people wanted. And I did it just because I didn't like the guy that was running, and I tried out for the play just because I didn't like the guy that was trying out for the play. I mean, all my motives were goofy. But I found that I was doing these things, and that at my reunion, I found out that people thought pretty highly of me, but I didn't. Had no idea who I was, and my mom was going through her stuff, so life was hell. And somehow or other, I started developing this victim mentality. I had a lot of surgeries. My baseball career was ruined by an operation that went bad, and I had a real promising career, and that was important to me. Sports were important because I could get out the aggression, and I was good at it. But everything just got slammed. I got hit by a car on a motorcycle when I was 10, and it smashed my knee, and the doctor said, "You're never going to be able to run, and you'll never be able to walk properly." And I gave him one of these, and I ran my last Beta Breakers 8 years ago at 35, and I made pretty good time. Now my knee's shot. It is. I did a lot of damage, and I have arthritis, but I just had to make it wrong for about 20 years. And, that's a price. We pay prices in here, and that's a price that I paid. My mom told me not to get on the motorcycle, and I did. And I paid a price, and I pay for it every day. But those are the kind of things that happen. When I did the wrong thing, there was usually a consequence. And then I got to thinking that maybe I was getting over for a while. But by the time I was 14, my mom was deep into her disease. She was parking the car in the tree and things like that. And I was being Santa Claus at Christmas and trying to keep my father from kicking her out. All that kind of normal stuff that people go through. And my friends' lives weren't like that. And it was just hard to handle. And, by 8 years old, I was kind of raising my younger siblings. So nobody gives you a manual and says, "This isn't usual, but just hang in there, kid, it'll get better." And the reason that I really started drinking and using on a regular basis was because of my reaction to what happened in life. And there are some people that are better adjusted that would have maybe ducked, maybe said, "I'm going to a new family," or any other response. But I just, what I did was I just took bullets. I was just getting pummeled. And it just kept feeling really bad. And so I'd get out of my head. And again, 15 years old, 16 years old, when I got a car, I always had a job. And by the time I'm a junior, I can get beer. I've got people that'll get me beer, and I got a bag in the glove box. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I was just, gone all the time. I wasn't retaining anything I was learning. I was just kind of getting through, and I hated things. And then the next year, I worked at a liquor store at 18, and they had 84 imported beers, and there was drug dealers that worked there. So we had 84 imported beers. I had the keys. I made deliveries to myself. I had a 59 El Camino with lots of room for a big ice chest, and every night I had the ice chest full, and I had whatever I wanted, and I thought I was living right. I thought that was good. And then I ended up working in a grocery store, and the assistant manager was a Coke dealer. So, I don't know how we magnetically end up with these people. And it's just the way things were, and that's kind of how life was. I saw Animal House, and I thought that was important. I went to college at San Mateo, and I determined that I was going to write a book, and I was going to create chapters through adventure. And so I lived the adventure. I didn't want to be John Belushi because I didn't want to be John Belushi, but I wanted to be a character, and I was. So I went out for football, and of course, the guys that I hung out with were stoners. And, we smoked dope before football practice. And, you just don't excel when you do things like that. I just wasn't doing the right. How are you going to remember the plays? But so I ended up blowing out that knee that was damaged from before and had knee surgery, and that was the end of my football career, and that was the end of everything, basically. So then I had no idea what I was going to do, and, I did just crazy things. I challenged a teacher one morning. I had a class at 8 o'clock in the morning, in this class of like 60 people. The teacher says, "How would you influence people? How would you make friends?" And I went, he said, "Okay." And I had just pierced my ear, and this is 1976, I think, and people didn't do that very much, and had my tank top on, and, I was feeling pretty good about myself, and I said, I would bring a case of beer and put it in the back of my 59 El Camino and say, "Come on down." And he said, "Yeah, right, shut up." And I said, "Next week, I will be in parking lot C, and show up," and so I started this little debate with the teacher. So what ended up happening was I did it because I was a man of my word, and I got drunk, and then I ended up going out in the fountain in the school, which was this deep, sitting in rafts reading Shakespeare, and people came in and tried to dump us in, and we threw them down and had some wrestling in the fountain, and I got up and walked into class soaking wet and sat down, and I said I made some friends, and he kicked me out of class. I saw him about 20 years later at a restaurant, and I tried to explain to him who I was and what I did, and I tried to make an amends, and he had no idea what I was talking about. So made a bigger impression on me than him. But I was, that's not a way that you get ahead. And I got a hold of microphones all the time. I was a Contemporary Entertainment Committee chairman, and I would book events, and I'd have parties with 700 people in halls that I'd rent with 20 kegs of beer and a live band, and I was the MC in Tux Tales, and I'd have a limousine. And that's the way I was doing things. And I forgot to tell you that I was a very devout Catholic, and I was starting to teach catechism now. This is where life really starts getting out of balance. God revealed himself to me when I was an infant. Just very little. I have always just had a presence of God in my life, and I've always run from it. My grandmother was a very spiritual lady, and my mother was when she wasn't fired up, or she was when she was fired up too. My mom and I are a lot alike. She's very energetic. And she now has 26 years. I'm real proud of her, because if she didn't find the program, I don't think I would have. But anyway, I just started getting deeper and deeper into this stuff. And then I moved up to Sacramento, and I went to school up here, and I didn't have enough money to get into much mischief. But, every time I drank, or every time I did the other stuff, I just went over the edge. And ended up having to quit school and come home, and in 1981 I went to work in San Francisco in a Fortune 500 company wearing suits that my dad charged for me, and borrowing ties from him and using his briefcase. And sometimes I'd forget to take out the earring and remember if it was daytime or nighttime, and I was living two different people. And then I started working at liquor stores at night to supplement my income or something like that. And when I wasn't doing that, I was a bouncer at nightclubs. Now I'm teaching catechism in two different churches, St. Bart's in San Mateo and St. Catherine's in Burlingame, and singing in the choir. And I was a lector, which means I read scripture. And at that point in time, I was able to stop when it was Sunday. For a long time I was able to do that. But as the years went on, I got in a bunch of car wrecks, got in all kinds of trouble, got into that rocket fuel, and just took me straight to hell. A lot of car accidents, a whole bunch, really messed up my neck and back. I also play tournament softball, so I play on 3 or 4 different teams in different cities, and I'm really a holy guy when I'm in church, but the rest of the time I'm angry as hell. And if we're on the softball diamond, everything's free game, and it's all open. And since I'm have this love of God, I've never walked up and clocked anybody, but I was so angry I looked for opportunities to take it out on people. So it was during athletics. And I'm not that big, and I had a lot of attitude. I really had little man's complex. My little brother's 6'4", my dad's 6'2", my big brother's 6'1", and then there's me. And it's just not fair, but that's life. So my whole thing has been attitude. It's been my vehicle my whole life. I'm just trying to allow God to direct it a little bit differently. But it's very, very difficult feeling the presence of God in your life, having all this anger from bad things that happened. And there was a few other things that were very horrible that happened that shaped my anger. And I just went underground and started lifting weights and preparing myself. I have to back up. At 14, I got severely beaten by some big crazy guy at McDonald's that thought I looked at him wrong. And I mean, he hurt me badly. He pummeled me. And at that point in time, the fear that I talked about earlier just kicked in. So I started pumping iron and just walking around like we've been doing since 9/11 in some cases, just, wondering who's coming next, and I'm going to be ready, and I'm going to get him. But then there's the Holy Spirit over here saying, man of God, you don't do that. So the only way for me to rationalize that is to be inebriated, to put something in my system so I can have the freedom to let the anger flow through my veins, and that's what I did. So, again, there's no way to reconcile those two things. They're at polar ends. You've got anger and hatred and fear, and then you've got God and light and goodness and all that. I'd go talk to my priest. I'd confess and tell him what was going on, and then I'd tell him about the interactions at the nightclubs, and they weren't always wholesome relationships, weren't always long-term relationships. And there's just no way to reconcile all that. And I just was living that way, and I hated myself. So he kept saying, you're a good lad, you'll get better. And I've come to understand that a lot of religious folk don't understand the disease of alcoholism. And it makes a difference. They mean well, but if they don't know, that's why we can talk to each other, because we share a common experience. We have been on the Titanic as it goes down, and we're trying to help each other into the lifeboats, and that's something no one else can understand unless they've been there. But this went on for years, and getting vehicles repossessed, moving from place to place, have a nice girlfriend, lose her for whatever reason, good job, get in trouble, quit before they get to me, that sort of thing. Just keep moving. Or I guess that's what Doug was saying earlier. But and I always thought of myself as the good guy, and a lot of people liked me, but I'm sure there was a lot of people that hated me. And my image of myself was that I was the good guy, but I wasn't realizing I was ripping and running through people's lives. I was borrowing money, and I'm a salesman. I've always been a salesman. And I thought that I could balance off this scale. And I'm doing more at church. Then I got, around 1986, I started young adult ministries at our church, and we were a real cool young adult ministries. And people from other parts of the Bay Area came to see our modeled program. And then they asked me to come and be on NBC on a talk show. So I got connected to the producers of a Catholic talk show called Body and Soul, and it turns out that the producer had seen me at some big function, and we were a lot like each other. And while we're on our way to the tapings at NBC, he wanted to get stoned. And I didn't want to do that before talking. But anyway, I ended up on this show, and really I was just supposed to be in the audience. But the thing was, I was going to raise my hand and ask a question, and I've got 5 different tapes with me right there on Sunday mornings on NBC. More hair, but, talking and asking questions and being very articulate. And between shows, I'd run into the bathroom at NBC and pull out my wallet and chop, 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 and something that energized me a little bit, and go back and be full of two spirits. And, the thing that's so funny is people would say, you're a hypocrite. And I'd say, I'm not a hypocrite, because I'm confessing to my priest, I'm trying, and I was full of the Spirit, but it was generally, either sped up or slowed down, or there was something going on. But I never left my church. I never left my faith. I just hated myself because I was bad. And I've come to learn here that we're not good people, or we're not bad people trying to get good. We're sick people trying to get well. And I hated myself, and I wanted to die. So when the Pope came to town on September 18th, 1987, I found out that my ego was so big, and I needed to be needed so much that and I was so tied in with all these people. I was on the vocations committee to find priests. Again, think about the mix that I've just told you about. Who is this guy? And there's this guy over here doing the church life, and then there's the bars and the clubs and the anger and the sports and all that. And so they let me get involved, and I ended up being the guy driving the vehicle in front of John Paul II down Gary Street. And I had this plan. I'd been up for about 3 days, and I had this plan. Well, if you kill yourself, you go to hell. So the deal was, people said, you might get killed because they're going to probably make an attempt on his life in San Francisco. And I said, good. Not for him, but I'll get killed with the Pope and I'll get a seat next to Jesus. That's what the thought was. Rational thinking. Martyrdom. I don't know. Made sense to me at the time, but there was no way out for me. And I wanted to die and couldn't pull the plug or I'd go to hell. So I thought I'll just roll the dice. I wanted to help anyway, but if that's what happened, then that's okay with me. It was a really weird experience. The CIA and those people are turkeys. I didn't have weapons and they did, and we fought the whole way. And they're very strange. When you say things to them and they don't like it, they walk over in a circle and they talk to other people and they look at you. It's bizarre. It's bizarre. And they have a little wire behind there. They're very strange people. And I thought I made total cognizant sense to them, but apparently not. Anyway, we got the deal done, and they tried to get me to drive right into crowds. It was just amazing. They tried to make me do things that weren't right. And then I got yelled at by all the people getting off. And I had the world's press on the back of this huge, real long truck. They were all supposed to be getting footage. And I was told how I was supposed to drive, and I was supposed to drive 7 miles per hour. They made me drive 35. So everybody that got off the truck at the end said, thanks a lot, asshole, we didn't get any pictures. So I was the fall guy. I didn't like that. That hurt my ego as well. So I went and, got real drunk over that. Anyway, I got so loaded that I slept through the thing at Candlestick Park. I didn't even get close to the Pope. I also had this thought that if I live, if he just touches me, I'll be fine. I didn't even see him. They had me so wrapped up tight. But, so again, normal thinking for most people. This is the kind of stuff that most people grow up with and do. So I found myself going, this is really cool. How many people, there's only 7 people in the world that are doing what I'm doing in the other cities. And I'm sure all of them have, I had to get CIA clearance, and it's because Father O'Reilly said Randy's okay. If they would have looked under anything, they would have found out I was dangerous. But I thought that was pretty amazing. So, I was working on this Animal House story, and it just continues, and the chapters go. And sometimes it's trouble, sometimes it's interesting. And then I get to this place where I'm staying up all night and drinking and using, and things are getting worse and worse, and I'm losing weight, and I'm having more injuries, and I'm not having fun, and I'm fighting with people, and my world is getting behind curtains is what's happening. I'm just sort of going underground, and I can't understand it. So then the real spiritual stuff starts happening, and some miraculous things happened, and I had all these people at church that were saying, you're supposed to be a priest. Now, I have to be careful how I say this, but if you've never eaten the fruit, you don't know. If you've eaten the fruit, you miss the fruit. And I'm not meant to be I hope that went right over everybody's head. I'm not meant to be a priest. That's what I'm trying to say. They have certain rules in the Catholic Church, and they don't involve women. And is that delicately clear? So anyway, it's okay to blush in AA, isn't it? Anyway, I wanted to serve God, and what I thought God was doing, I thought this big evil God was kicking my ass until I'd come to him. So he was just pummeling me. He wasn't pummeling me. I was pummeling me. It was self-will run riot. But in my sick mind, I determined that that's what God was doing. And the church needs volunteers, and I was going on retreats, and I was working with the youth. And actually, my pastor saved my life by having me work with the kids. I told him, you're a lunatic. I am a bad person. And the fact that he made me show up, it's like having an AA commitment. It kept me alive. And the fact that I had to be there on Sunday and read Scripture, for most of the time it worked. In the end, I came loaded. And then there was just no hope. But anyway, I was living under total shame and total fear and total guilt. And that's just the way things were. And it wasn't that the church was doing it to me. They were loving me. I hated myself because I just felt bad about it, the things that I was doing. Anyway, I ended up doing some funeral services for some friends of mine. A friend of mine's mom died, and She had me do a funeral service, and I felt really good about trying to help Inga to the next room, wherever that is. And then a few other things happened, and it became pretty clear to me that was a nice thing to do, that I couldn't handle this world and that I needed to go in that direction. So I made application to the seminary, and I had a very strong Catholic resume, and I had lots of support. And I told them I have an alcohol problem and other things too. And they said, we can work with you. And then I believed that since I told them that, I'd be fine, and then it got even worse. I mean, I couldn't stop. I had always been able to stop. During Lent or some other period, I could stop, but I was all the way gone, and I just couldn't stop. So I ended up stopping for a short period of time, but I wouldn't go to meetings because I went for 2 weeks, and they wouldn't let me talk. And I didn't like it. It was at the Alano Club in San Mateo. And it was a different bunch than the kind of people that I hung around with normally. The book says, we wouldn't normally mix. Well, I didn't want to mix in any way, shape, or form with these people. That's where my mom got sober, and she kept bringing him home, and I hated it. She'd bring home a plumber and give him some money to get materials, and he was gone. And then she'd bring home a painter, same story. Then she'd bring home a roofer. And she never got it. She's still doing it. And they keep taking her money and going, and she's sober. But I didn't want to be like those people, so I hated that place. They wouldn't let me talk, and I left. Because, of course, I didn't have anything to say besides spread the disease, but I couldn't have been told that. So after 7 months of desperation, and I stayed sober, I stayed dry on lifting weights, playing ping pong, and trying to seek humor. I was watching the Three Stooges. I was bringing friends over to my house going, we're not going to AA, we're going to study history, we're going to read the Bible, we're going to get humor in our lives, and we're going to work out, we're going to educate ourselves, and we'll just hang out together. And they're like, okay, sure. And that's what we were trying to do, and just figure that one out. Again, I don't think like I used to think anymore. I mean, this is all, could be humiliating, but we'll call this humility building. Just part of my story. They say we won't wish to regret the past. Sometimes I'd like to pretend it was somebody else. I think it was. I'm making this stuff up because I have a boring story. I'm just making all this stuff up. Anyway, so ultimately, I went to a mental facility. I didn't go as an inpatient. I mean, I just went to a meeting. I went to a bar, tried to convince a friend that I played softball with to try to get me something illegal, and he was trying to stay clean and sober in a bar, and I was going in there to quit being clean and sober, and he couldn't find me anything. So I actually went to this meeting, and it was in a mental hospital, and the people were medicated, and they were walking around going, you're not supposed to be talking now. Why are you talking so long? And I just said, I saw what I wanted, that it didn't work, and I went out the door. And I went and I picked up everything, a bunch of different stuff, and I was gone for 4 months. And I came to the place to where I was sitting, where I had my spiritual awakening, or my moment of clarity. I was living with the gal from my church group, platonically, no relationship, and she didn't realize that I had started up again. She thought she was living with a clean and sober guy, and I'm sneaking in my own place. And on one wall of this little room I had all my sports trophies and awards, and then I had my business plaques for sales success or lack of success. And then over on this side, I had all my religious artifacts, all the holy stuff. And I'm sitting in there, and my heart is about to beat out of my chest. The sun's getting ready to come up, and I got a big tall Sapporo and some other stuff sitting on a plate. And a voice as clear as mine right now says, "It is not your life to throw away." And I went, "Which one of you said that?" There's nobody in the room but me. She's asleep. And I got it loud and clear that I was trying to terminate my life on the installment plan. That way, God couldn't say, like I'm going to fool God. God couldn't say that I killed myself. And as soon as I got that, I got up and I went and I poured all the stuff down the toilet, said some nasty words, flushed it, and called my mom and said, "I need a meeting." She said, "Welcome home." And there it started. And I went to meetings the next day, and I was really arrogant because I got sober to become a priest. I couldn't have gotten sober just to get sober. I had to have a glorious reason because I was working on this book. So, and I never wrote a single chapter, by the way. So I was a real pain in the ass because my mom's got sobriety, and my mom has clean and sober houses, and a lot of people know who she is because they need transition houses after they get out of facilities. So I thought that I was special because of her. Then I thought I was special because I was going to maybe be a priest if I got through it. I was a turkey. I was a real turkey. At 47 days clean and sober, I ended up going into a 28-day program. And, they say you'll hear your story. I still have not heard anybody that waited that long and then went. But I tried to quit my job, and the excuse I used for my boss was that I have a problem with alcohol. And he said, you're a good man. We have a program, and we'll pay for it. And if you don't like it, quit. If you don't like the job, quit the job, but let me help you get sober. And I figured out that people cared about me more than I cared about myself. And I thought, gee, I'm supposed to be reading in the Easter Passion, which is almost like a drama. That was important to my ego. And the softball team needs me and work needs me. No, life went on just fine. But I had all these reasons why everybody needed me. And the truth is, I needed a break. The chipmunks were moving a little faster than the legs could go. And I went in, and I'm not going to explain that blow by blow, but over those 28 days, things started happening. And I cried for the first time, because they made me write down some historical stuff. And when I wrote it, it wasn't bad, but when I had to read it to the group, I cried. And that pissed me off. Anger, can't let them see my fear or any emotion. And I went in a room like a shot mule and wouldn't come out for a while, but that was the beginning of letting something in other than just me. And amazing things started happening. I had really good sponsorship. I think a home group is essential. I think the steps are essential, and my sponsor took me through them to the best of my abilities, and I've worked them since a couple times because, different levels of honesty and ability. But I got a commitment real early, and I told him I don't want to be a secretary, because secretary down there means the person that sits up here and facilitates the meeting, because I have too big an ego. They said, oh, it's perfect for you. I mean, they had an answer for everything. Whatever I tried to say to get out of something, they nailed me. But what I did was I started applying the same things I did when I was a bouncer at the nightclub, because I also was like a maitre d' during the day. So if it was an old couple, I'd really want to help them feel welcome. And that's what AA does, is it makes me feel welcome. When I was a bouncer, I would always try to make the ladies feel welcome, make the guys feel welcome. So in AA, when I was secretary, I went around the room and shook every single hand, and I got to know people. And I became part of the program instead of on the perimeter. And when they told me in the treatment center that 2/3 of you aren't going to be here, I'm really stubborn. And I looked around and I said, I'm the 1/3, and I am, and I was. And most of them didn't make it. I didn't want anybody to fail. I wasn't stepping on anybody, but I wasn't going to go down with the sinking ship. I was going to learn to swim. And you have taught me that a day at a time. When I got sober, when I got into recovery, I hadn't paid taxes in 4 years, Mr. Religious. Just didn't understand. I didn't understand it. It was confusing. You think the devil has horns and a tail? No. Looks like this. Many spirits. But anyway, I try to tap into God as best I can. Anyway, I was in financial disrepair. Everybody that called was a creditor, and I was hiding under the covers. But pretty soon, I got a job. I had to go. I was a laborer for manpower, digging ditches for a plumber, which was way below me in my mind. But you know what? It peeled the ego back and allowed other things to come in. And eventually, people believed in me and helped me get work. And eventually, I paid my bills. And eventually, I went back to school. And all the things that I ruined with my alcoholism, piece by piece, they came back together because I did what you told me. And my sponsor kind of walked through a lot of these things ahead of me. He got good employment, and I got good employment. He got engaged. I got engaged. He had already completed his school, but I went back to school. Not only did I complete my education, but I also paid for my wife's education. And she graduated with our son Joshua in the tummy still, and that was pretty cool. He came to mind, too. Yeah, he came to mind. He just doesn't know it. But so we both got we took care of the education thing. And then I was able to buy a small condo in the Bay Area, and then we moved up here and we have a house. Well, the mortgage company has the house, but we get to live there and make payments. But these are things for a guy that should have been dead, that was plotting maybe taking some other people out while being religious. And I would have found a way to justify it. That's what I was working on. It was just kind of a tough fit. I hadn't found the situation yet, so thank goodness. But all the things that seemed so difficult all came back together. Maybe I wasted a lot of money. Maybe I wasted a lot of time. I'm 44 and I feel like a kid. I have a great life. And the best things are the God things that happen on a daily basis. I work very, very hard. I'm a very solid employee, and I'm in sales. And I sell to the government, and the market has been very, very bad for what I do. The air bases are spending their money on bombs and bullets and planes instead of furniture. Good for them, bad for me. And I got told last week that I should start looking for a job. I've never been told that in sobriety. I did once, but I expected it. It blew me away. And I went to a meeting, and I called my sponsor, and I called some other people, and I did the footwork, and I got in touch with somebody. And yesterday, I accepted an offer from somebody that's like 25-30% more money plus a vehicle. I mean, you could have never dynamited me out of this thing. My self-will said, work harder, more hours, it'll get better. That's me. Page 60 to 63 talks about being the director, trying to direct the show. That's my favorite passage because I'm always trying to get everybody to act just right, and then I'll be okay. Alcoholics Anonymous works in fair weather and foul if I work it. It works in good circumstances and bad if I work it. So I've got to hand over my victim card. I can't be a victim. But the way that God things work is on that day, Tuesday, when I had this interview at the airport, the godfather of my 2 children is a spiritual brother of mine, and he lives in the Bay Area. He's a tanker driver. So he leaves me a message, and I'm in Davis, and he's driving down the street. He's on Highway 80, and he calls me on a cell phone, and he says, where are you? I said, I'm in Davis. I'm on 80 heading east. He said, I'm on 80 heading west. We were 2 exits from each other. He said, I want to give you your kids gifts for their birthdays. We pulled over at the fruit stand off of Mace Road, and we stood there and we prayed. And he prayed that God would provide me what I needed and that my interview would go well. And he said, and let them give him a nice vehicle and let the package be good. So I went and I got on the airplane, and I knew it was going to be okay. The guy picks me up. We go have dinner. We sit and we talk, and I didn't have to fight about anything. I told him what I wanted. I told him what I needed. I told him I wanted a car, and he said, which one do you want? And then I go to the airport, and I see a gal from the Saturday morning meeting in Folsom. And the whole way home, we talked about God stuff. And I wasn't thinking about me at all because she had a hard issue. And, and the whole trip was a God thing. I mean, it's all a God thing. Somebody, I'm not sure who said it, but somebody earlier, I think you said it, Rick, it's every action can be a God thing. And if you're not into God, that's okay, because this works for anybody. But for me, knowing what I know, I've got to be true to me. I'm sharing my experience, strength, and hope. And it's not the God that I met in church initially. It's the God that moves through these rooms. And it's a spiritual thing. It's not a church thing. It can be a church thing. But I've learned my spirituality here. And I apply that when I'm in church because church is important to me because I want to worship any way I can. I want to be in communion with God. And I don't want my will. I truly want to turn my will over. And I prayed this morning that I wouldn't be critical, and I've had a pretty good day. And I prayed that my needs would be met and that I would be of service to God, to my family, my employer, and anybody else I can help. And I say if I can have an opportunity to talk about God or about your son or about Alcoholics Anonymous, please bring the people to me. And when I pray for stuff like that, what do you think happens? They come. And it's incredible. So, I'm going to pray for humility. They're actually giving me a nice car, but I don't need a vet. I don't need the bigger house. I may want it. I have everything I need. I have kids that love me. I have a wife that loves me. I've been married 10 years. I've been sober 13 years and 8 months. And I'm like a giddy kid about it. And I went to Akron in May. I took my money and flew to Akron to have a AA pilgrimage. And I went to Dr. Bob's house, and I went to the graveyard, and I went to the Mayflower Hotel. And if you ever get bored with AA and it's not fresh for you, study the history, and you'll realize if you think you bicker in your group, we bicker in ours. And you wonder about it, it's amazing. God had to be involved to put this thing together. And if he didn't, I'd be like my grandfather, dropped dead on the street in Eureka, drunk, hit your head, gone. That's me. I do not deserve to be here. This is grace. It is the unmerited favor. I am lucky. So every day I get, I gave my life to God when I was first sober, but like a lot of things, as soon as it started getting good, I took it back. And I gotta leave it there. I've gotta leave it there. And I know, we're just about at time there. Sponsorship is critical. I don't want to be inside my head. Somebody was talking about AA funerals. A friend of mine from the Burlingame men's meeting died riding with a bunch of different guys up in Weaverville on his Harley. And he had a heart attack while riding at 48 years old, and he never fell off the bike. He made it over to the side, had a huge, big funeral. And yes, it's very sad, but Bill died sober, doing something he loved, and quick. And it was beautiful to see the church packed. And the week before, he was just saying to somebody else at the same church, because Eddie died of a staph infection after a four-way bypass. Eddie was a lot older, but he said, I wonder what it's going to be like for me. How did he know that a week later? And the priest is a recovering alcoholic. And everybody that came up, the church was full of alcoholics in recovery. And it was beautiful. And that's all I could wish for is that when I die, hopefully there will be some nice things said. I hope that I've earned that. But the bottom line is that I want to die sober, and I'm going to work this thing to the best of my abilities. I'm going to realize that God has me where he wants me to be the way I am. I may want to appear calm, and if you knew me 13 years ago, you would think that I was on Prozac. Seriously, scary energy. But it was mostly anger. And I am as comfortable as I can be in my uncomfortable skin. And that's just the way it is. I'm an animated guy with a lot of energy, and I'm going to give it to God. And He can have the energy back. Try meditation, and it just sounds like bells chiming. I'm real good at prayer. The meditation gets a little noisy. Sometimes I have to turn on music because... But I'm having fun with myself. I don't take myself any more seriously than I have to. It's a good life. If I get taken out on the way home, it's been worth it. And I love my kids. They love me, and I'm trying to live for something other than just my own self, and it works really well. So my wish for you today is that you're as desperate as you need to be to take this seriously. And I hope that you will find what I found, because however you do it, however you want it, if you look, there's recovery here. And it's the grace of God and the fellowship of alcoholics. So thank you very much.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Sobercast is ad-free, and we'd like your help in order to keep it that way. So if you'd like to help us be self-supporting by pledging $1 or $2 a month, visit Sobercast.com and look for the donate links. Thank you very much.